All right, ladies and gentlemen, the trick series is back. So it is true for maybe 2 weeks that I have not issued a trick video, mostly because I'm super busy for the past 2 weeks. But also, tricks are harder and harder to find, especially with the AI software. Back in the days, I had a lot of tricks that I know, but now because of AI, those tricks either became really legit moves, or um, or they're just completely eliminated by AI. Like there's no way for you to play them at all. So how can I give an example? Well, one of the example is like when you play this one, right? This used to be a trick, but now it's like an official move. This is a good move to play out in your game. So things have definitely changed a lot. But today, I'm very glad to tell you guys that I found a really, really good trick that you can use. Definitely, I would say 80% of your games you can make use of them. So very exciting. So let's take a look. Black approaches the 3-4 corner with a low approach, and white placed a pincer. So at this point, white is already setting up a trick, which is really interesting. Usually my tricks are like after a few moves, alright, then you play a weird move and it's already a trick. But turns out that this D7 is very tricky in its own, on its own. It's just, it is a Joseki slash trick. It's very rare to see a high pincer like this in your 3-4 opening, but you can definitely go ahead, and I encourage you to go ahead and play this from time to time in your games to add some flavor to your games. Instead of playing approach, the 3-3 and stuff like that, you can go ahead and play this pincer. This is like the trickiest pincer position, right? Like we know there's a lot of pincer ways to pincer. We can pincer here, we can pincer here, and the same for the low pincers. Each of them definitely has a different meaning, but most of those pincers are tricky, but I would say this one is the most uncommon and the trickiest among all of them. So today we will talk about just this pincer. And some of the tricks and traps that you can set up for your opponent. So let's first of all talk about what are some of the moves that black can play to fall into a trick or get into a more tricky pass is what I'm saying. So a lot of times black would go ahead and pressure the corner, which is an okay move, but it's not a move that I would recommend to my viewers because now white will push and cut. And check, this is already getting very tricky. So black is in a tough situation now because of the position of this stone. See, this would be totally different if this stone was at D8, but now it's at D7, so it's putting the max pressure onto this fight. Black does not want to Atari here, right? And I think I definitely say some of my viewers would actually just go ahead and Atari and connect here. But turns out that after this variation, white got a strong outside, as well as later on, if he jumps at B4, he's gonna expand his corner. But now look at black's shape. Right? Our D7 is a very effective stone that is just destroying black's shape, and black pretty much has to add another move, and this is a very good outcome for white, right? So the reason being that later on, not right now, so later on he can still putting pressure by making moves like this. So now he can go ahead and just play elsewhere, and this is locally already better for white. So that's one way for black to fall into the trick. And obviously you might be asking, well, what if I don't connect? Well, that more or less ends up to be the same thing, right? So if you attach here, first of all, there's there's already problems, right? You will be squeezed onto the third line, and white's outside is absolutely very strong, and then it's a lot more value than what black got. So really at this point it's just hard. I mean, you might be, drag your group out like that, but I mean, at some point down the line, if white cuts this d6, that's going to be a very serious problem. Let's say, for example, this happens. You have this group to worry about, and then you have this cutting point, and you cannot fix both weaknesses at the same time. In white's corner is just fine, right? Like, he can block at c4, he can push and capture e2 stone. This is a very good fight moving on for white. Alright, so we talk about variation that does not work. What about some other variations, right? So extending out would be another interesting idea, but turns out that white will play the most aggressive. Not only it encloses black's 2 stones, but also trying to kill these 2 stones. So it's just trying to kill everything, literally. Black will exchange this one. White is forced to block, and then he extend. White will keep pushing, and now black pretty much can't do that, because after this cut, this is a very serious problem for black. So black will avoid that problem by playing h4. And now white can make this jump. That's a very good move. And when black extends, white will make his corner really safe. And this is already difficult. So let's just play out the accurate continuation, which is pretty intuitive. White will attempt to cut, black connects, and white is going to make this wedge, right? Very, very good wedge. Black captures, and we make use of our ladder that is currently working. It's usually working this early in the game, and black needs to make himself alive by escaping over here. And white pushes, black honeys, and white will make the jump. So now black is in a very difficult situation, right? So on the one side, he has this j4 cutting point. That's very serious. On the other side, this is in a dying situation. So he needs to run out these group, and now white can go ahead and cut over here. So definitely a lot to remember. I mean, at this point, probably both sides going to play out this one, but just realize that this is definitely a more difficult fight for black moving on. You have this potential cutting point, so later on my capture would be a sente, right? So this group has no problem. White needs to run this group. This stone is also in danger. And this turn is huge, so a lot of places for white to play, and the corner is solid, right? Like, this is a golden carbonate. For basically, it's even better, right? Because now black's missing a liberty. So basically, my point is that this is a very difficult fight for black moving forward. So not a great variation for black. So that pretty much covers what happens when black extends here. We just keep pushing hard, right? Because we're setting up a trick, our opponent falls into the trick, we need to play the most aggressive possible. So black's best response turns out to be blocking at e3. So that's aggressiveness for aggressiveness. Really, both sides is just playing at the max strength. White needs to play the vital point, honey. Black needs to block, and white connects, right? Making his corner solid. And now black Ataris white will extend himself out. This is threatening to Atari here. Black will jump. White really wants to cut right now, but unfortunately the ladder is going to work for black. So white cannot do that. White will keep pushing once more. And now white can push even once more. So black really does not have time for this, because this is too serious, right? Like this is just this is too serious towards this group, and black is pretty much forced to extend once more. And now I think white can go ahead and basically kill, try to kill black over here. So here, it's very difficult for black, as we can see, right? This is definitely a lot of variations, but this just looks very difficult. White has a lot of liberties, black has 3. Black needs to figure out something with a lot of reading. So let's say, for example, this one will be countered by white simply attaching. Not very clear how black is going to get out, right? White is just going to use very, very brutal, aggressive, blockade over here. Black is going to die inside. And probably best attempt that black can have is to play at the b5. And now white can play out very aggressive c6. So this looks very vulgar. It looks like a very, very bad shape move, but it's very effective because it tightens black's liberty by 1. And black needs to jump into the corner. Just going to briefly cover what's going on. So black likely will turn here and make the peep. And now if black extend, I think basically I think what is white going to play? White can hane here. Black will pretty much have to Atari here, right? Like if he lets a black to go at a5, black won't have much liberty left. So after this exchange, if black plays this one, white can go ahead and squeeze at a c3. This is threatening to play b4. Black will connect, and white does not get greedy. He will just be satisfied with a seki. And now it's white's turn to play. Right? White can go ahead and just fix the weakness outside. This is already a seki inside. And as we can see, white's influence is tremendous towards the top side. And black is okay, but he's only on the 4th line, right? So this influence is not going to compare to what white got outside. But if you're greedy, you can maybe exchange, and then you don't even care about this weakness, right? You just rely on your strength, and you say, well, you are already dead. Obviously, that's that comes with a bit of risk because black can actually drag this out at some point. Probably not right now, but at some point. But this is a better position for white, right? Even if you just play here, yeah, I guess here it's probably safe. This is probably a good idea. Or you can be more creative. A lot of moves is going to work. So that's how you would play out as white, right? So the crucial move for you to play is the c6, right? If you play anything, if you just try to make a good shape, when black jumps in, this liberty fight is not going to be as good as if your stone was at a c6. So important move to remember when black extend onto the 2nd line. All right, so we have also covered what happens when black blocks, and this is the black's best response actually, is to actually block here. So we cover those, and obviously if black attach, these are easier variations, right? We're just gonna basically extend ourselves, and this is pretty good for us already because I mean, after this exchange, we can come back and our influence is very strong, and then we have the potential to enclose the corner, and this is just a pretty good position for white. So black, at this point, if you got cut off, your best response is probably to play e3 and play out the very complex variation that I mentioned. All right, so that was quite a lot of variations, but at the end, before I recap everything, I would like to say, well, you might be asking too, like, what does black play, right, after this pincer? So obviously, black has this very not easy to manage variation that is also legit, but I would say that for my viewers, I recommend you to just jump out. Very simple to manage variation, and you will see why. White will follow up with f4. That's just a very good move that not only pressures black, but also gaining territory. And now it's black, you can go ahead and tenuki. Right, so as you watch more of my videos, this tenuki just comes into your mind, I hope. I mean, after so many videos of people tenuking, because the reason is that we don't need to worry about these two, because there's no good follow-up for white to really kill these two guys. Right? If you play this one, obviously there's a lot of weakness. I mean, you know, this is probably 11Q problem, right? It's too many cutting points. If you push this way, I'm just at the right position. I break out, and then you got split into halves. And what does white play? If you kick, well, I can just keep playing elsewhere. There's still no good way to gain significant profits, such as killing those two. So at this point, after black tenukis, white's best response is to patiently jump out. And guess what? Black can go ahead and play another move. Well, you might be wondering, can I enclose black at this time? You sure can, but check this. We have the attach. We have this, right? And we have this way of getting out. So black's still not killed. And white already invested 3 more moves than black, right? Even if black just keeps going, still not a fantastic way to completely kill these 2 stones. So that's a great way for you to respond in a situation that you're very unfamiliar, right? Like, because at this point, black does not want to push. It might be okay, but it's kind of helping white to get territory. But if there's no good way for black to keep going. There's a weakness if you play this way, and even if white plays, it's gonna help his side. So if you don't know what to play, maybe just don't play. Just go ahead and play somewhere else. And that's actually an AI recommended way for you to play locally. All right, so that's how you actually play correctly, and don't get yourself tricked into some sort of trap that your opponent has set up if you encounter that. But in your game, if you want to set up a trap just for the fun, you can go ahead and play the 1 space high pincer, right? So it's very important that on a high position, right? So let's quickly recap how black sort of falls into the trick and how to counter the trick. Black goes ahead and we push and cut. We talk about what happens when black plays out this one. We can just be better locally. Very simple. Black is in a very awkward position. We can harass black with this move. And black needs to fight. So if he fights this way, we can push. Black can get this incentive, but that's no problem. When we push a couple times, we can just go ahead and we can just go ahead and jump here. And after this variation, we can go ahead and wedge here. Right? Very important that you don't cut here, but rather you wedge here, right? You want to take the outside, so you wedge the inside. And now, after a few moves, now here probably black needs to play this one. White can jump out, and check that. We can go into a very, very good fight for us. So that's what happens when black extends like this. So black's best response when you are actually in this mess right now is to play the most aggressive fight variation. White will push 2 times, and then white can cut that, and now our d7 stone is shining. Black will resist with a b5, and that's his best move, and we follow up by tightly not playing any relaxing moves such as b7, rather some ugly looking but very useful move such as c6. Alright, and the correct continuation for both sides is for black to turn and then get all the profits he wants, and then extend down. White will play out this one, and black will turn here. After this exchange, white does not want to get greedy, because if you throw in black in going like this, and then there's probably still a seki, so what's the point? Better if we just stay simple. Right, so this is a seki inside, and then white has this wall, and then he has a sente, right? He can fix according to his preferences, right? This is okay, and maybe more active play would be something like this. It's all very, very playable, and this is definitely a leading game for white. Moving on. And finally, we covered how you would respond, and that's actually very simple. That's for you to jump after your opponent plays a very annoying move, which is an excellent move that is very annoying to us. We can think flexibly in tenuki. So white has no great follow-up, so he needs to be patient and putting more pressure. But turns out we can just keep tenukiing, right? So at this point, white doesn't really have a good response. Playing here is not ideal because black can just keep ignoring white. So maybe white needs to get rid of the roots, and black can just play according to his preferences, right? Like he can respond locally, that's no problem. He can just play out like this, escape like this, and that's no problem. Alright, so I really hope you liked today's trick, and I think it's a very useful trick that you can use in your game, because it's literally like move 5 and you already get your opponent into some sort of tricky situation. So very, very interesting pincer that you can play out in your games. Alright, so don't forget to give a like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, comments about this trick, you can comment below the video. Alright, and thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you guys in the next trick.